righty, welcome to Screen Time with today's Communiqué. So delighted to have Miss Kat Hodge visiting with us today to talk about adoption. As we know, November is National Adoption Awareness Month, and so we want to talk about that topic and more specifically how it affects the Black community. There's not a whole lot of coverage as it relates to adoption in Black communities, and we want to talk about that. And so, Ms. Hodge, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
All righty. So before we jump in and talk about today's topic, tell us just a little bit about you and your career path.
Okay, I'm Kat Hodge. As you mentioned, I'm a native Arkansan. I've lived in the central Arkansas area my entire life. I'm a practicing attorney. I work for the state. I've been practicing in my current position for about 16 years. Grew up here, educated in Little Rock Public Schools. And so I guess that's it in a nutshell.
All righty. Thank you. So let's just jump right in.
Okay.
You are the mom of two beautiful boys that you adopted. And so tell us a little bit about your journey to adoption and that decision that came about. How did you get to that point?
Kenya, that's a really tough question because I really don't know. Like, I don't have a textbook answer to that question. I just know that I decided I wanted to be a mom. I had a heart for adoption. And I guess the best answer to that question would be, and I've shared this story with my boys recently, maybe in the last couple of months. In my late 20s, most of my volunteerism, leadership positions all centered around kids. I was in the junior league for a spell, and my initial assignment was DDR. And it was fine. But the next year, I worked with the Grow Girls, and I loved it. I loved planning the programs. I was a VIPS volunteer in Little Rock School District. I had a mentee at Otter Creek Elementary. I participated in spelling bees at Washington. And so I was just naturally gravitating toward working with children. I worked in children's ministry in the church that I was a member of at that time. And I told my boys, it occurred to me that I get to spend all of this great time with other people's kids, and I don't have kids. And I guess that's the cleanest answer I can give, that I had a heart for kids. Um, it was placed on my heart that adoption is a need. As you mentioned, in the Black community, we have so many children, Black and Brown children that aged out of the system, that are not, or at least when I was exploring adoption, that were not being adopted. And I just thought it was a win win situation. And so I guess that's how I came to it.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And so when you mentioned that, there's you had all these other experiences that led you to make that decision to adopt. Talk about the fact that at the time, I guess in the non-traditional sense, you weren't married at the time, single, not engaged or anything like that. So talk a little bit about if that affected your decision at all, taking the I guess what we call a non-traditional route to becoming a mother.
Right. It didn't. And as crazy as that sounds, because I thought about this in preparation for our talk tonight. I didn't have, and I'll tell you, this is so funny. I was watching the episode of Insecure, the most recent episode. I love Issa Rae. I like the show. And I don't want to do spoiler alert. Molly's mom is in the hospital. And there's a section in the show where she says, and I haven't even given her grandchildren. The least I could have done is given her grandchildren. I don't remember having that pressure as a young professional woman. I don't remember my parents or my mom saying, gosh, you're putting all of your eggs in your education basket, or you're putting all of your eggs in your career basket. When are you going to settle down and get married? I don't remember ever having that conversation. I have been pretty much independent throughout my life. I early on had a strong work ethic, in a sense that I wanted to work and make my own money. And, I come from a two-parent home. But I had a paper route as a young middle school girl. my mom got up with me in the wee hours of the morning and rolled papers with me. And so I guess I have always taken a bit of a non-traditional route. I started working at a young age. I didn't pick a career based on gender or traditional gender roles. I focused on my independence, working so that I could provide for myself. And so I focused on my education career. And then, as I mentioned in my late 20s, when I was spending all of this time with children, I just said I wanted to be a mom. It didn't occur to me that I was doing something non traditional. It was just what I decided I wanted to do. I do recognize now that that is non traditional.
Mhm.
And I want to, give kudos to, I know so many Black women who have adopted as single moms. I could rattle off, and I don't have their permission to do that, so I won't do that.
Mhm.
The names of at least 5 African American women who are currently single parenting it by choice,
Yeah.
either and through the adoption process. They are professional women, they're career women, and it takes a certain level of bravery. And I guess I was too naive to be scared to do it at that point. In reflection, in hindsight, gosh, you got to have a certain level or a certain amount of guts, I think, to say, I'm not going to do this the traditional way. That's not really what my thought process was. I respect it and appreciate that. When I see so many other brave women doing it, I was just doing what it is that I wanted to do. And I had a heart for wanting to be a mom. And, I think maybe we'll get into this. I did have people say, I mean, don't you want to get married first?
Right, right.
I mean, no, not really. I mean, I'm not opposed to being married. I wasn't opposed to being married, but the desire of my heart
Mhm.
back in 2009 and 2010 was to be a mom, was
Mm.
to give permanency to kids who may have been in a tough situation through no fault of their own. And the fact that I was or was not dating or married or engaged was just absolutely not a factor. Wasn't.
Wow, and I'm glad that you brought up, some of your friends or family may have said, "Don't you want to be married first?" So, how did you handle some who pushed back on you, the naysayers? How did you handle that?
Oh, girl, it was tough. I thought about this tonight too, and it made me, I'm 10 years into this. My oldest son is 10 years old. My youngest will be 10 in January. So I'm 10 years removed
Right.
from the initial decision, maybe 10 or 11 years removed, because it takes some time to go through the process. And you tend to forget that, intentionally or unintentionally.
Mhm.
But I will tell you, just to be transparent and a little vulnerable here, when I first kind of dipped my toe in the water and just kind of told people, look, I'm thinking about doing this, I don't recall people going, woohoo, let's do an interview with you, about this and talk about it. I remember people saying, don't you want to be married? I remember a person, and let me say this before I share some of these kind of naysayer stories. I don't think any person who sat me down or talked to me about this had any ill will. They
Right,
did.
right.
They weren't malicious. They weren't being spiteful or hateful. I think in their own way,
Right.
right? They were being caring.
Yes.
I remember having somebody, and I know for an absolute fact that this person loved and cared for me, say, men don't marry women with kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You are basically doing yourself a disservice if you decide to take this path. You need to accept that you may or may not ever get married.
Right.
Um, I had people saying things like, gosh, I mean, what kind of kid will you get? There's that fear or that stigma that these innocent kids that find themselves in a tough situation are somehow to be feared, or that it's a challenge that you don't want to accept or take, especially if you're doing it alone.
Right.
And those things were hurtful, if I'm being honest.
Absolutely.
And not hurtful in a damaging way, because like I said, I don't think there was malicious intent.
Mm.
But when you decide to take on um, it really is like a dream of yours and you don't have that support, it can be hurtful. And I'll tell you, when I actually started the process, I didn't tell a single person.
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't tell a single person. When I sat down and said, took in everything that everybody said. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. You may be lowering your prospects for getting married.
Oh,
Um, it's going to be a huge financial burden. You may be lowering your prospects for advancing your career, right? That's the thing that women in our society, the mother trap,
yeah.
so to speak, that when you as a professional woman decide that you want to also have a family, that you have to consider oftentimes more than men do how that will affect your career. I had people talking to me, oh, you're such a great lawyer. If you do this, this might affect your career. And I decided to do it anyway. And I decided to do it quietly.
Wow.
I decided to do it quietly because this is a spiritual journey for me. Um,
Gotcha.
just to get maybe not on a little soapbox. And I'll tell you, I'm an imperfect person. I'm not preaching to anybody. I'm not finger pointing at anybody. But I think I would be remiss if I didn't say, particularly for those of us in the Black community who hold ourselves out as Christians, that the idea of adoption, the fact that we are adopted into the body of Christ,
Mm, mm,
um, wasn't lost on me. And
right.
it's still never lost on me that if I can do a little soapbox and a call to action, that for those of us who profess a hope in Christ,
Mhm.
that if you're led to do this,
Yeah.
seriously consider it. We are all adopted,
Mm,
if you profess a hope in Christ. And if we weren't adopted, I don't even want to think about what the outcome would be. You know what I mean?
right.
So I have that perspective for
Yeah.
adoption. That is my perspective for adoption, coupled with my just pure love for kids and my experience working with kids and my desire to be a mom. The overarching context for that is a how I feel about being adopted myself,
Mm.
body of Christ. So
Wow, that right there was so mind blowing. I know I'm going to be thinking about that later on tonight. How you made that connection because I never thought about it that way, and
oh
I
yeah,
people have made that connection, that parallel. That's
yeah,
just very mind blowing. Wow. And so when you think about the whole process that you went through, as you said that you started the process very quietly, you didn't tell anyone. So share with us a little bit about your process. As you mentioned, you have two sons. One is 10 now, and the other will be 10 next year.
yes,
And so you adopted them, you welcomed them into your home when they were infants. And
yes.
so talk to us a little bit about that process.
So I'll talk to you, two parts of the process. One, there's a pretty thorough application process. I adopted through the state, and I know that there are folks who do private adoptions and there's surrogacy and other types of adoption, but I adopted through the state. And so, of course, you're doing an application process, you're going through a background vetting process through child maltreatment, FBI, or state police background checks. There's a home study, an interview process to make sure that you can provide a stable home for a child. And then there is a requirement that you take a parenting courses, and those were very interesting. I changed my mind about different parenting, doctrines throughout the process. And even today, I read different parenting books, and I'm always trying to be a better parent. So that's the one part. The second part is the waiting, right? I wanted infants, and I'll tell you, even in the process, people said, "Oh, you're never get an infant. Like you just don't get infants. People wait for years for infants, and I got two." you
Yeah.
know, I just was like, if God isn't in this, I mean, that's, that was another testament to me. I started the process quietly. I had to tell a couple of people because I needed references. But part of me wanting to start the process quietly was if I was embarking on a journey that the Lord didn't want me to be on, I didn't want to be on it.
Mm,
And I really felt like if I just tuned out the naysayers and I did it quietly, and if it went the way it was supposed to go, that meant it was supposed to be. And it went the way it was supposed to go. And I had hiccups, things that I don't necessarily want to share. It's a
right.
heart, it's a heart-wrenching process. It's an exciting process. You don't know it's not like surrogacy where you're waiting on you have a surrogate and you're waiting on your child to be born. You are waiting for a child to be available that the agency has determined will be a good fit for you. And quite honestly, Kenya, there were times that I had to consider whether or not children were or were not going to be a good fit for me. And
Mm,
that's tough. That's really tough.
yeah. Yeah.
But you have to consider all of the circumstances and situations. You don't want to be in a situation where you can't provide the best care for a child. And
Right.
so I waited. I waited. I was very hard headed too. I remember during the process, they say things like, don't start a nursery,
Right. Yeah.
because you don't know. And I started one anyway. You know what I mean? And so to have a nursery and be waiting is both exciting and you have hope, but it's also that waiting period, right?
Yeah.
And I have a funny story. I got the call to meet my oldest son while I was at work.
Okay.
I didn't have a car seat.
Oh,
To go to Target and buy a car seat. Um, and it was just all like moving very, very quickly. And when I met him, he was so tiny. I was afraid to hold him.
yeah.
It just was, I just remember thinking, okay, here it is. This is the thing I've been waiting on for so long. And then I was like, he's so small. I might break him. I don't know. But it was all exciting and joy and nerves and scary and all of that. But the process of applying and then waiting is just so many different emotions all at the same time, different day, same day. Um, I just don't know any other way to describe it.
Yeah. And you have two boys.
I do.
Was there any thought into, like, when you were making your application, thinking about the gender of the child that you wanted to welcome? Were you always set on boys, or was it just, whatever the Lord wants you to have, you're willing to accept?
It was both. My preference was definitely boys.
Okay.
But again, if the Lord had led me to adopt a girl, I definitely would have adopted a girl. But I had in my mind a fantasy of how it would be to have these boys. And I got what I prayed for. And in fact, Knox's life verse, oh, I'll get it wrong. It's First Samuel. I should call him in here. 1:27. It's Hannah's prayer. I asked for this child and you gave him to me. And I asked for a boy. I wanted a boy, and the Lord gave me a boy. And oh my God, I'm embarrassed that I don't think I got his life verse right. But
I just got goosebumps thinking about it. That's just so beautiful. That's just so absolutely beautiful. It's,
um,
here's a question for you, for those who may be watching and are interested in this process. What bit of advice, words of wisdom, cautions would you extend to them?
um, so, gosh, I don't know. This is what I tell people: being a mom, a single mom, is the hardest job I ever begged God to give me. I'm dead serious.
Yeah,
I, I begged for this.
yeah, yeah.
And it is hard. I can give you stories about how much fun we have. I love to dress up. We like to go fishing. I was going through pictures right before we got on the Zoom and laughing to myself because we went to Branson back in October. We rode horses, and one of the boys had a horse that was real stubborn. My horse's name was Pumbaa, and it was crazy. And just looking at all the pictures and just remembering how crazy and fun it was, like it just gives me all the feels. It's hard. You know, there's you need to be emotionally, mentally, physically, and financially stable. But that's for any big dream,
Right.
right? Those are just the foundational things. I think it definitely helped. Once I started the process and folks knew that I was serious about it, I had my village show up for me.
Oh,
They really did. And I don't know if you remember my baby shower. I mean, you came by the house, and there were tons of people who showed up and showed nothing but absolute love, grace, and mercy for me and Knox, and then did it a second time a little less than a year later when we welcomed Niles into our house. And so I don't want to leave the viewers with the idea that, oh, this was sad and people don't really support adoption. Once I got into it,
mm,
the village and the flood of love and support I have had genuinely for the last 10 years has been remarkable.
wow.
And so I would just say, pray about it. Make sure you're as stable as you can be. This is one of the things I talked to a pastor when I was second guessing, maybe I was biting off more than I could chew.
Mhm.
And I talked to him specifically about a concern that folks were saying, you don't know if you get this child, if there will be issues that you won't be able to handle. And he just said, Kat, any parent could say that.
Right.
There are parents right now, unfortunately, in any hospital in this country who biological mom, biological dad get together, have a plan, and then they receive some unexpected news about their soon to be born child or their just born child. But that is not a situation that is specific only to adoption. And so, if that's why you're second guessing, take that off the table.
Right.
Parents across the country have to have some stability and support from loved ones. And it doesn't matter if you're doing it biological mom and dad, single parent adoption, two parent adoption, step parenting, co-parenting. If you are welcoming a child in your home because you've your family has experienced a loss, and so you're taking in a cousin or a niece,
Right.
whatever the situation is, you need prayer, you need as much stability as you can get, both emotional, mental, physical, and financial. And you need folks who love and care about you that will show up when you need them. That's the recipe.
Wow.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
I was going to ask you how your faith walk has, well, helped you to prepare and how it has, strengthened your family unit since the time Knox arrived till today. So you have Knox and Niles to today. How has your faith helped you in this role?
Oh, tremendously. I mean, I couldn't do it without, I started the process with that faith walk. That's the things I've been talking about when I second guessed myself. I had my village show up and those who helped strengthen me in my faith. There have been things that have happened. For example, like I just mentioned, I wanted boys, but my heart was open to anybody, and I got exactly what I prayed for. And so, all of those things, there have been challenges that we've had to overcome that I know it was not me. And
Yeah.
so the Lord just continues to show up and show out for me and my family, single parent or not. And
Mm.
so that's not lost on me. I know that our faith walk is what's sustaining our family. I was sitting next to a gentleman in church today who was a repeat visitor to our church. And he asked me, "Are you a member here?" And I said, "Yes." And I kind of shared with him the reason I picked our church, we're members of Rock Creek, is I knew that as a single parent with two newborn babies, that I was going to need a village, and that village was also going to have to include a faith-based community. And so I started searching for churches and places that had a very strong children's ministry, that
Mm.
I knew that in the times where I was not going to be enough, because I'm an imperfect person, because I'm going to be frustrated, because I'm going to be tired, that I would have put into my boys' life this faith based relationship that would sustain all of us. And I can't tell you, they told me the story of Job today after church. It is working. We are winning in terms of our faith walk, and it's only going to get better from here. I just can't say enough about how important it has been that they have been in that community, that they're growing up in that community. That is our normal. It's not a new normal, that's our old normal.
Right, right.
And that normal is going to carry me as a single parent. It's going to carry them as teenagers. It's going to carry them as young men. It's going to carry me when they decide to become parents, if they decide to become parents. Um, I can't say enough about it.
Wow, that is what a testimony. I mean, just right there. I just got goosebumps a couple of times when you were describing that. And so, one final question for you. You're the mom of two 10-year-olds about to be tweens, two boys.
Yes. Yes.
So, what is the best part about being a mother?
Oh, it's so I'll give you the kind of heavy, gushy part first, and then I'll end on a lighter note. It I'm really big into folks like Brene Brown and Henry Cloud. And in my personal pursuit of, I guess, personal development and growth. And those authors in that genre always talk about the need for connectivity, to have your clan, your crew, your people that at the heart, I don't care, the grinchiest Grinch person the Scroogiest Scrooge, those people don't start off like that. At the heart of us as human beings is a desire to be accepted, to belong, and be connected with other people. That is the heart fields of being a mom, of being a parent, and being in a family. Is at the end of the day, I want knots and nows to know I got them.
Yeah.
They are not alone in this world. That when they're out doing their thing, that in the back of their mind, they know if they don't know anything else, they got me. And
Mm,
they got me for forever.
mm,
And that's that kind of innate desire that we all crave as humans. That's this is my people.
right.
Not denials are my people. The fun stuff is just, I mean, let me give you one more gushy thing. Because adults tend to be overworked and overconcerned and worried about all the wrong things. And I don't mean wrong things in a bad way, the work, the groceries, the water bill, the cutting the yard, the all that we can get into a routine where we're just moving, in a very routine, methodical way.
Right.
Remind us that this world is still a good place.
Mm,
They remind us to dream. Let me give you a little story, two stories.
okay.
We are doing what I do. Leave church, we have to run errands, we go by the car wash, we go to a department store so I can make a return. And out of the blue, while we're waiting on our turn, Knox starts asking me, Mommy, when I go to the NFL, am I going to have a special bed made? And I was like, yeah, you might, depending on how big and tall you are. Some professional athletes have to have a special. See, he's dreaming.
Yeah.
That's what's so beautiful about kids. That
Yeah.
they're not, I'm thinking about the next errand we need to run and what we're going to have for dinner. But kids have a very unique way of reminding us that it's okay to just stop and dream. And I never grow tired of hearing of his musings about the NFL and what team he's going to play on and what he's going to do and what things are going to look like. Because in his 10-year-old mind, he is reminding me every day that you got to stop and dream. It's okay to dream. And that hope, that like innocent hope is so cool. Same thing with Niles. I might walk in a room and see cardboard boxes and duct tape and I'm thinking this is something else we need to clean up. But Niles is working on an invention, a prototype of how we're going to be able to throw the trash out and take the trash out without actually having to leave our houses because they're constantly dreaming. And I think that's so beautiful.
That is
I
beautiful.
really do. That kids have a very unique way of reminding us of how good it feels to dream and have hope. And then just the sheer fun of it, I don't need an excuse to decorate or dress up. or do anything fun and silly and crazy. And I need that balance.
Yeah.
I got my little road dogs. I mean, we're planning Halloween costumes. We horseback ride. We fish. We are, it's the fun part that kids let you be a kid again.
Yes.
And you need that. We need that. That's one of the things that people ask me, oh, what's so good about being a mom? It's in your kids, you remember how good it feels to just have fun.
Yes.
And I love that about my boys, that they are really so full of adventure. I have been fishing more times than I ever thought I would be go fishing in my entire life.
Yeah.
Um, we've had silly conversations, just it really is, for the month of October, we wore Halloween pajamas on the weekend and watched scary movies.
Yeah.
Those are the things that kind of encompass everything that I've been saying, that this is my crew, that we're connected, we're family, we're having a good time. I love them, they love me. We support each other. The other thing that I wanted to mention was, and this just popped in my head, um, is that I'm always overwhelmed with like a good feeling like inside my soul whenever my boys do something that remind me that this world is still a good place.
Mm.
And I'll give you a story, and I feel like I'm rambling. But I got lost. We got lost, and we are in the car. And I look back, and Knox has fallen asleep. And I look over in the rearview mirror, and I look back at Niles, and I say, "Hey, bud, are you asleep?" And he was like, "I'm not gonna go to sleep on you, mommy. I'm gonna stay up." And you just had to be there in that moment. It melted my heart. He can't drive.
Right.
He doesn't know where we are either. He's not reading a map. He's not giving directions, but he is in his own little 9-year-old mind saying, I got you. I'm not going to fall asleep on you. Just so tender and so caring that it really just being lost and just checking on him and him really communicating to me in his little bitty 9-year-old way that I got you, mommy. I'm concerned and I'm here with you really just melted my heart.
Yeah. Oh,
And these boys do that for me all of the time, all of the time.
yeah.
Um, and I wouldn't take anything for it. It's hard,
Mhm.
but those little moments make it all worth it.
Yeah.
Um, one morning we were getting ready. We have two standard golden doodles. If you see them on Facebook, we post them occasionally on Facebook. They're ginormous. One morning they had an accident all over the deck. And I was like, oh my God, I don't need this. I'm already running late. So I just leave it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
finish getting ready for work and I look out on the deck and Knox is cleaning it up.
Oh, wow.
I didn't ask him to. He didn't tell me he was going to do it. But again, it's one of those, I got you. Like, I, we're a crew. You're my people. I'm your people. I sense there's a need here. And in my 10-year-old little self, I'm going to step in and do something nice. These boys do that all the time. They
Oh,
do it all the time. And it lets us know, let me just bring this full circle. When you're talking about adoption, we have a responsibility because you started out in the introduction talking about the Black community.
right.
We have an obligation as a people and as a community to pour into these kids because these kids are going to be the kids that are going to make our community and world a better place. If we don't invest in them, who will?
So true.
Who will?
Yeah. That is, like you said, that is a definitely a full circle moment.
It is a full circle moment. Everybody who can and has the heart for it should check in. I meant to look at the numbers. Do you know Project Zero posts the numbers of the kids who are waiting? And that Project Zero slogan is so compelling. Until there are zero kids waiting, we ought to be talking about adoption every day.
Absolutely.
Until there are no kids waiting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, Ms. Hodge, thank you for this
Thank you.
such a beautiful, rich, deep discussion. Like you said, a full circle moment.
Yeah.
Um, I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone in the community for making the decision that you did.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm the blessed one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so with that, that's a wrap.
All right.